So we're out today with the Caine Survival Tool, the Magnum Kukuri machete from cold steel, and I have a variety of wood to have a look at. We got some relatively small, sort of soft, thin branches here. Some much thicker, harder branches. Some deadfall buried back there in the snow. Lots of ingrowth. Nice, big, heavy piece of deadfall back there I might work on, and lots of smaller scrub brush over there. So the main thing I'm going to be looking at today is how much of a benefit can I feel with the much stiffer blade on the Caine Survival Tool in terms of the vibration and feedback that you typically get with a longer, thinner blade like on a Magnum Kukuri machete when you hit harder woods like those branches back there. The blade tends to have a bit of vibration because it's not as stiff. So I'm going to see what kind of effect I feel in that, and also look at the general cutting ability and handling of both tools. And the other main concern I want to have a look at, the Caine Survival Tool comes with a primary convex bevel that's very shallow, almost close to flat. It has a very slight secondary bevel. It's supposed to be ground very thin down by the handle, and then as you sweep it up along the blade, it gets thicker for the main chopping area and then thins out towards the tip. Unfortunately, this one was ground almost the exact opposite. The edge is thickest down by the handle and gets thinnest right in the chopping section, where it dips down to about 12 thousandths of an inch thick. It thickens again throughout the tip. This is the fourth one of these blades I'm after having. The first one broke with a sudden crack right next to the handle. The second one had a very defective grind similar to this, but even more extreme. The third one broke right by the first one, right by the handle. Now I'm going to have a look at this one and see what happens here. So now let's give it some use and see what I can figure out. So this is the Caine Survival Tool in a short little patch of boughs. As I expected, it's much more comfortable to chop and cut with on this type of wood in the Kukuri machete. It feels much more axe-like in that you are not getting any vibration at all with the blade when you're cutting. As well, the very fine edge gives it very high cutting ability, so it's again more of a surgical tool. You're able to do relatively light wrist flicks to take off these very small branches on the outside, and then some heavier chops to take off the thicker branches. Again, this is a small amount of work and this is relatively light wood, but immediate impressions, even on this little amount of work, shows a large difference between the Kukuri machete, which is again very much a machete with a very thin blade, and the Caine Survival Tool, which is more of a parang and a full-size knife. So the much stiffer, thicker blade on the Caine Survival Tool does give a lot less vibration, much smoother cut, and again makes the blade feel more axe-like when you're working through the limbs. So no contest whatsoever. Like, I actually very much enjoy working with the Caine Survival Tool on this type of wood. It's very clean cutting, and the combination of lots of forward weight, big wide blade, lots of belly, and very thin edge all combined to provide a very functional tool. Now, the Magnum Kukuri machete, don't get me wrong, works well. But it goes from the point of the Magnum Kukuri machete is what I would say is very functional, very capable. Whereas when you move to something like the Caine Survival Tool, it actually becomes enjoyable to use. The performance is significantly better. Now, all of this I said before on the last examples of this blade that I had. Just wanted to try it directly against the Magnum Kukuri machete, just to get a better feel for some of these things. Now I'm going to again move on and look at some other types of activities, such as bucking some of the thicker wood, which should again show the benefits of the thicker blade, and then limbing out some of the harder limbs to check and see if that very thin edge is a durability concern. So we've cut down a fair bit more branches. We got a little fire going. I got to keep this very open and very airy because all this wood is frozen. It's about -5 Celsius today, so the wood actually has ice frozen in it. You need a lot of air moving through the fire to keep it burning. And all I did was start it off. I took some of an old tree, like the one you can see back there, which is very dry. Broke that open, and then I took a small piece of very sap impregnated bark, and with the bark and that lighter wood sustained the fire long enough to start breaking down some of the wood. And this is about 20 minutes later, and you got a nice little fire. So now this will all start burning down, and I can get some coals off this and build a sensible fire once I got a decent bed. The other thing you need to do to keep this nice and airy is you want to keep it off the snow. The snow here is only about a couple of feet deep in the deepest parts. I stamped this down right here. Very difficult to clear it out of the way, and it really wasn't. This is not a permanent campfire. So I just stamped it right down, put some of the thicker sticks on bottom. So this should burn down and clean up the bottom as well. So the Caine Survival Tool is working well. I've cleaned out a large number of trees. You can see these are limbed out, cleared up. Now I want to move inwards to some of the harder trees like this, some of the thicker branches, move in there and really start putting some full force behind the swings and seeing if that really thin edge keeps holding up. But so far, no issues. And again, I'm really liking the axe-like feel of the Caine Survival Tool versus the more machete-like feel of the cold steel Magnum Kukuri. And again, it's mainly about the vibration that you feel with the Kukuri machete, because it's so thin it tends to move around a bit. So the fire's after burning away down, it's after heating and melting all the snow and ice on the bottom, forming a nice stable base. So you can use this now as a fire. You could build this up. I'm simply going to let it burn down and cover it over with snow once I'm finished. Cleaned out some more wood, all the dead low-lying wood off these trees. You can see back here they've been cleaned up, but I haven't moved the boughs out of the way. I'll get them out of the way now. No effect whatsoever at the edge on the Caine Survival Tool. One of the nice things about this is how versatile the handle is. When I'm working up close on really soft, really small limbs, I hold it about like this. It keeps the center of mass not very far in front of my hand. It's very light, and I do cuts right up there by the top of the tip to sweep off the smaller branches. When the branches get heavy, shift my grip way back. The power of the blade goes right ahead. You work in the main area and cleave off the larger branches. It's a really nice, versatile grip. So far, no problems with limbing on softwoods, moderate woods, and what I would call even moderate to hard. This is winter, it's -5, most of these things are frozen. Now I'm going to go look for pretty much worst case scenario. I didn't find exactly what I wanted, which was an old spruce, but I did find this amazing clump of birch not more than 5 minutes away from where I had the fire started. Just to show you how important it is to walk around a little bit, scout a little bit, even after where you decide to stay. Because if I had taken, say, a few handfuls of bark off this, and they peel off, of course, very readily, that would have made getting the fire going much easier. Wonderful wood to start a fire, really nice wood to burn, really nice wood to cut, really nice wood to chop, just wonderful wood all around. And there's a whole clump of it right here, and a few other stragglers up that way. Okay, I didn't get exactly what I wanted, not the right species of tree, but anyway, there's some relatively decent branches there, down there, another tree right next to me here. Looks like somebody tried to limb it off in the past, left a lot of these stubbed out. That's really dangerous when you leave them out jutting off the tree like that, that far out. They snag, and when you break them off like that, it's even worse. So if you're going to cut them off, you want them cut off right nice and close to the tree, where they don't provide any source of harm for anybody. So this is a much harder task to limb up and clean up some of these boughs off some of these trees here. And this curious little thing is one of the reasons why you need a relatively tough blade for working in the woods. You can see there's a very old fence that was here at one point in time. This is barbed wire, and it's after growing into this tree. Oftentimes when people come up to repair the fence, they'll just snip this off right here, and they'll snip it off right in here. The tree continues to grow around it. Then you come up, you go to work on it, you're bucking through it, sawing through it, and you lance right into this barbed wire, and it's not a very good day. Now the only thing that saves you is it's usually relatively high up around the 3 foot mark. So normally when you cut down a tree, you're way down there, but you run into this when you're bucking it. And what makes it worse is that sometimes it's on very small trees. Like you wouldn't attempt to cut this down with a knife, it's too big. But smaller trees like that, little ones in there, they can sometimes string them along them, and they do the same sort of thing, cut the wire off, and all of a sudden you're cutting that down, and all of a sudden the chang, your knife goes right into that piece of wire. And that's one of the reasons why you want a steel that's very tough, that resists chipping, but the same thing that makes it very tough and resists chipping also tends to make it very easy to grind. So whatever damage you do get, you want minimized, but you want it relatively easy to repair. There's also lots of great stuff to have a look at here. You can see there's 2 dead trees there in the back. They should be cut down and harvested, open that place up, let a bit more light come in. There's lots of windbone deadfall back there that all can be harvested. This is one of the areas I was working with previously. There's some wood that I had cleaned up a lot of this area before, so lots of great things to do here with my knife. And again back there, a couple of deadfall posts you can see. And again, they've passed their prime, so they need to be cut down and harvested as well. So we've cleaned up the barbed wire tree, cleaned up the limbs here, cleaned up all the stragglers here. Walked around in here, cleaned this up. There are some slightly harder trees around here, but not by much. And I worked on this as hard as I could, full force swings, no issues. The edge, even though it does get a bit thin right here, held up absolutely fine, no damage whatsoever to the primary grind.